Thank you very much, Dan. Secretary Nielsen?
Yes, sir. I'm just going to move. I might just talk loudly, if that works. So I just want to thank you, as always, for your leadership on behalf of the largest law enforcement agency in the federal government. We so appreciate your leadership, your support. I know Tom and Tom folks do. I always tell them that I will always empower them and support them, but you enable me to do that. So we thank you always for your leadership. I want to thank the commissioners. I want to thank the members of Congress here. And most importantly, my thoughts and prayers continue to go out to the families that are here today. This obviously should never have happened, and we will leave no stone unturned until we combat it. I do want to say, horrifyingly, to knit together everything that folks have said before, 7 of the 13 gang members that murdered these lovely girls were unaccompanied alien children that came into the country. And the problem with that is they come in, they're recruited, as was described by the commissioner, but they also come in and they pay a debt. The smugglers require them to serve in the gangs to pay the debt for the smuggling. So they're either forced to join the gangs, or they're tricked into joining the gangs, or they're recruited to join the gangs. So there absolutely is a tie between all the loopholes the Deputy Attorney General described and the resurgence of these gangs in our communities. The other 2 loopholes I might have just mentioned, one was just mentioned. The other one is that we still cannot bar known gang members from coming into our country. We have to change the law. We know who they are. We know what they do. We do not, under the law, have the ability to make them inadmissible on the face of being a gang member. So we have to change that. So DHS, as the director knows, we're leaving no stone unturned, as I said. We're securing our borders. We're building your wall. We're increasing technology. You've deployed the National Guard. We have 3,000 apprehensions that are attributed in addition to the fact that the National Guard is there. We're enforcing the law. I also would like to join the director in thanking everyone here that represents law enforcement for putting your lives on the line every day to help our communities. You have tremendous thanks from all of us. The arrests under your leadership are up 42%. So the men and women that you have empowered are out there doing their job every day. We're cracking down on fraud. We have a 315% increase in adults who are using children to pose as a family to come into this country illegally. We cannot have that. So we're cracking down on fraud. We're cracking down on adults who pretend to be children to come in because they know that's a loophole. And we're certainly cracking down on the false asylum. If you want to come here for family reunification, that's not asylum. If you're coming here to seek a job, that's not asylum. Those are not legitimate reasons under the law of the United States. We will not grant you asylum. We are going after the gangs. Director Homan talked a lot about that. We're protecting children. We need to protect all the children that do come here. So we're increasing background checks to make sure that when we do, through HHS, hand over a child to a sponsor or alleged family member, that they are, in fact, either a family member or somebody who is not a convicted criminal, smuggler, or trafficker. And finally, we're pressing Congress, and I will continue to do that. I had many conversations on the Hill this week. I have made it my duty. I appreciate the members being here for that reason. But we will close these loopholes, and we will take our communities back under President Trump. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Kirstjen. Great job. Thank you. And thank you for the really great job you're doing. I really appreciate it. Not easy. Not easy. Lee?
Mr. President, thank you for coming back again. This is your second time in less than a year that you're on Long Island for this purpose. And the message that gets sent to the victims of MS-13 is certainly being heard and felt by them. The message is being heard and felt by the law enforcement officers here on Long Island who MS-13 has been threatening. It sends a strong message not only to Long Islanders who care about our community and our public safety, but it also sends a strong message all throughout our entire country. It's really important when you run for office that you're able to keep your promises. And the effort that you have been showing to ensure the defeat of MS-13 is incredibly important, and it's recognized. I was last week in Jerusalem, where we were moving an embassy and a promise was being kept. I was in the Middle East last Christmas, visiting our troops where ISIS is almost completely wiped off the map in Iraq and Syria. It's so important for us to keep our promises. The message is being sent not just to Long Islanders, but all throughout the entire country. You have to, when wanting to eliminate a threat, be willing to identify it. And what we saw with the reaction to, it was the California sheriff asked you about MS-13, and you responded immediately to that remark and called them animals. And as our acting ICE director said, that was a nice way of putting it. But if you're not willing to even identify the threat, you have no chance of eliminating it. Same thing if you want to get rid of the heroin and opioid abuse epidemic, another promise that you're keeping. Locally, we have seen many indictments coming down from a great local U.S. Attorney's Office. There's a U.S. Attorney here, Rich Donahue, who I'm a little biased towards. He's a former 82nd Airborne Division paratrooper. But we're seeing indictment after indictment come down here in the Eastern District, and it's a product of all of the people who are here at this table who work for them, working at every level of government. We're about to hear from Ms. Hart, our new police commissioner in Suffolk. Everyone working together to ensure that this is accomplished is critical. This issue should transcend partisan politics. And unfortunately, it's not right now in Congress. Nancy Pelosi recently took 9 hours on the House floor to celebrate the humanity and the behavior that encompasses what has torn apart the hearts of our families who are here. As far as sending messages, it's also an important message to send to congressional Democrats. You have shown a willingness to compromise on this issue. An uncomfortable, you've put your neck way out there. And you're, in a way, you end up negotiating against yourself when the congressional Democrats just refuse to work with you. It's obstructionism. There are people who are in Congress who have pledged to oppose and obstruct everything and anything, saying they cannot work with you because if they work with you, they'll legitimize your presidency. You were elected president of the United States. They were elected to serve in Congress. They took an oath. They need to protect our constituents here. They need to protect their own. They need to work with you because you're putting your neck out there on the line. They need to do it as well, even if they're taking a tough vote for their constituents. As far as policy issues, we stand with you for stronger border security and interior enforcement. We agree that there is a need to end catch and release, to end this use of visa lottery. Beyond just the worst offenses that we've heard a lot about are all of the other offenses that aren't the high-profile incidents that we hear about in the national media. It's the drug trafficking that takes place here on Long Island and elsewhere. It's the sex trafficking that takes place on Long Island and everywhere all throughout our entire country. So all these policy issues are really important. Securing entryways is important, not just to keep out people who shouldn't be entering our country illegally, but also keeping things out of our country that should not be entering our country illegally. And as you know well, and I appreciate your leadership on the heroin opioid abuse epidemic, that is something that has been a huge impact on Long Island as well. Finally, we discussed it once before when you also, and I like to report back to my constituents, this isn't just something that we're talking about while you're able to come here to Long Island, but also meetings that have taken place at the White House and other efforts that are underway. But there is a need to have a tool given to our Justice Department, in my opinion, to be able to end our homeland security, to be able to revoke the naturalization of someone who it turns out that they were engaged in gang violence before they received their naturalization. Or if it's 6 months later or 2 years later, they engage in gang violence, they should have their naturalization revoked. I introduced after our last meeting the Protecting Our Communities from Gang Violence Act, H.R. 5065. I look forward to working with you on all of this. And I just really want to thank all of the fine, distinguished people who are here at this table. And also to everyone watching at home who's standing with our president. It's an important message to send, whether you vote for a president or not. His success is our success as Americans. And as Americans, you should be rooting for this man to be successful as President of the United States.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you.